Hey everybody, I'm Neal Ronaghan, director of NintendoWorldReport.com, and with me to talk about Nintendo's E3 2005, a look back into the past, 10 years in the past to be exact. With me to discuss that is Justin Berube
What's up, guys?
and John Rairdin.
Hello.
Now, John, I believe that you're on the younger side, so you were, what, 5 years old when this happened?
13.
Okay. I was only when was 2015? I would have been turning 17.
And I believe I was 20 at the time.
And you actually
So
went to this
old.
E3. Sorry, the YouTube video just started talking to me because I did not turn it off, so I got very thrown off when I started talking to myself. So yeah, Justin, you went to this E3.
Yeah, I was at E3 2005.
Now, was this your first E3?
No, my first E3 was 2001. So this, I think, was my third E3.
Okay. Now, and you also, what, 2004 was the other one you went to? So you saw.
I didn't go to 2004.
So you
I went
missed
to
the
the famous 2003, which was
the
Pac-Man
infamous.
versus.
I feel like infamous is probably the better term for that.
Yeah.
But so 2005, that was kind of an interesting time because it was coming off of that ridiculous Zelda trailer in 2004, in which E3 2004, for the most part, was a pretty solid show for Nintendo, even if it was on the back of the Zelda GameCube reveal that eventually became Twilight Princess. And Nintendo really built on that with their press conference, in which they just had a bunch of quotes about, like, that they repeated Reggie's quote about kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah.
And then Iwata came out and kind of says Reggie's kick-ass quote, but just is like, I'm about kicking butt, or kicking you-know-what.
Yeah, I remember that. It was kind of awkward when that happened.
Yeah.
It's like you said it last year, just say it again.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it just has it's this very aggressive tone. I know, John, we were talking about that a little bit with this version of Nintendo.
Yeah, they're just very, they seemed out to get not only, kind of Reggie and Iwata taking blows at each other, but also taking a lot of shots at Microsoft and Sony, talking about their sales numbers versus theirs, and just a very aggressive version of Nintendo.
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
this the
some of the
same-
stuff.
Is this the same conference where they're talking about the PSP and Reggie's like, "Not my problem"? Or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah,
I remember that.
Problem. I mean, it's that weird time where the PSP was still a tangible threat, because the DS, there was still some doubt about it then, because this was only less than a year after it came out, and the PSP was only a few months old.
Yeah, I remember the 2004. The DS was huge, and I felt like this year they had a lot to prove since it kind of had like a slow start. So
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I guess before we start talking about the main event, which I think is the DS talk here, I do like some of the. I mean, Smash Brothers, which is a big important part of Nintendo now, even after it came out. In 2005, they were kind of teasing a new Smash Brothers very, very overtly. I believe this was the one that Iwata said that they were working on a new Smash Brothers, and then Sakurai asked Iwata, "Oh, who's working on it?" And then Iwata said, "You." Because this was Meteos was at the C3, so this is when Sakurai was not at Nintendo at all.
yeah, you got that right. I could be mistaken, but I think Iwata, when we revealed the Revolution at the time, may have said that it would be ready in time for launch, or around that time.
He does. He kind of implies that they're pushing for it to be a launch title.
Yeah, which was insane.
Yeah. Knowing what we know now, yes.
Yeah. And and then I do like some of Iwata's quotes to start it off about how I kicked some you-know-what, and that's how he's challenging Reggie to some Smash Brothers in that. And then he follows that up by saying, "So, Reggie, I have a question for you. Who's your daddy?"
I remember that now.
Yeah, and this was, I think, the beginning of the end for Nintendo executives speaking without a translator.
Yeah.
As we'll kind of get to later, as the first big game that they show is Electroplankton. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Hey, I like Electroplankton. It's felt like a very experimental title, but it's not something you really want to lead off with. It's not for everybody, and they didn't even sell it in retail stores. It was only on Nintendo.com, and I think Nintendo World sold it, and I think that might be it.
Yeah. Yeah, I never actually, I never owned it. I only played it when it came piecemeal to DSiWare.
Okay.
There's a copy of it sitting in the game store that I work at right now, and
Unloved.
I think it's like $25 still. It's still reasonably expensive. Yeah, I had
But
never seen
guys,
it
that
before that.
that DJ, David Hollins, the DJ, he was doing straight nonsense, man. Um, like using two DSs, mixing it together. It's just like
Sounded
it's
like noises.
yeah, it's so weird that like they pushed Electroplankton so hard. It's kind of like when they did all that crap with like Shaun White snowboarding in E3 2008.
Oh, that was worse.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Electroplankton got about 5 minutes of time here, about as much time as Zelda would get later, and then they moved on to talking about online gaming, and how they were going to reinvent it by using GameSpy,
Well,
which
they did.
oh, that's juicy in retrospect.
Yeah. Yeah.
My,
Hey,
my
it was
note my
free.
note from rewatching it is just what a load of shit. Because as we knew, it's not that the GameSpy platform was terrible. It's just that I think the integration that Nintendo used with it didn't really work well. Like they kind of hamstrung it to a degree.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
y- I guess we might talk about it later, but at that E3 they had the DS Speak demo, which was just basically.
That's right, because that wasn't mentioned during the press conference. So let's just talk about DS Speak now, because I don't even I wasn't at the C3. I'm honestly curious.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, they didn't mention it in the press conference, like you said, but it was just on the show floor, and they had two units with a DS plugged into it, and you could put one of those one-piece headsets on, like one ear, and speak. It looked almost exactly like the final thing that Nintendo actually sold and marketed with the
Yeah.
Pokemon games, but it was black, and you could speak to each other through DSs, like across this kiosk. And I think there was maybe like a Wario or Mario head, like moving their mouth when you talked on the screen, like to make it a little more interactive. But Nintendo had that on there, and then they had very few games support the voice chat function. And these days, they don't even give you much of that when you think about it.
Well, I mean,
So
even when they started talking more about the revolution, as you know, for people who don't know, that's what later became the Wii. When they started talking about the revolution, they talked about how online was going to be such a big component of it, and they were going to have all of these online. They were going to have several online games ready for launch, and that didn't happen. Like, I mean, they did have Virtual Console was up on day one. That's good. But they didn't have any online games. I'm trying to think of what their first online
I
game
think it
on
may
the
have been
Wii
Pokemon
was.
Battle Revolution.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, yeah. So 6 months after the game, the system launched, they had their first online game, and I don't remember Pokemon Battle Revolution even being that good of an online game.
No, I heard it wasn't very good. I think it might be one of the few first-party Wii games I don't own, actually.
But I mean, a lot of their talk on online. I mean, they mentioned not charging for it, which is something that they still don't do, which is different from Xbox and PlayStation right now, because
Mhm.
both of those companies charge for online. At least with their latest systems. Like Vita Online is still free and
To be
PS3,
fair,
but
Sony already had. I mean, PlayStation Plus.
yeah,
I mean, you got better online stuff if you paid.
yeah. But I mean, well, now with the PS4, you can only play multiplayer by
Right.
having PS Plus, which is, I mean, it's still as a Sony owner, PlayStation Plus is worth it, and I don't really play
It's a
online, and
good
it's
deal.
still worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the other online stuff, this was the launch of Nintendo Wi-Fi connection in general because of the DS, Animal Crossing DS, which would later become Animal Crossing Wild World, and Mario Kart DS. They were both going to be online by the end of the year, which was true. So that was a correct promise. But it was kind of weird just seeing Nintendo talk about how they wanted to take control of online experiences and make it so it's not just the macho multiplayer of everything else. And you kind of still
Yeah.
see that to this day. They haven't really, learned or, I guess, kind of gone to the norm. I mean, you look at Splatoon, no online multiplayer, or no online voice chat. There is online multiplayer. Christ, what am I saying?
Yeah. Yeah. To back up a little bit, they really were pushing the Wi-Fi connection in the booth a lot because the Mario Kart and Animal Crossing display they had set up,
Yeah.
they would let you play with, I think, Charles Martinet and maybe some people they hired to be there, and they'd have him like in the back, I guess, and they made it seem like he was like in New York or Seattle, and you were like playing with him, even though you weren't. So like they're trying to like give you that vibe that you were actually playing over Wi-Fi on these
Yeah.
games, and be
And I
like,
mean,
yeah,
that's
it's
tough.
going to be this good.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's tough to display online stuff, especially at E3, especially in 2005, because think of all the interference.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a hard enough time trying to have a Skyward Sword demo a couple years later, and that was during a press conference. And actually, playing some Wii games on the show floor, you would run into interference between other systems and just other wireless stuff.
And don't forget that year they launched the eShop at E3, and we're like, just go to our booth and download stuff. We have Wi-Fi, and
yeah, that didn't work.
the slowest
That
thing
was
I've
a
ever
nice
seen.
thought. And I guess before we start moving on to, I guess further down the list, or I guess when we get to the Nintendogs part, Tony Hawk's American Skateland was another DS Online game that was being shown off at E3 that year, which a good relationship with third-party companies. And then Nintendogs, that was the next big game after Electroplankton, which kind of shows how weird this year was. They brought up someone from G4, Tina Wood. I don't know if people remember her. She was on GTTV apparently. I don't really remember her, but she was playing Nintendogs, and you know what? Nintendogs is a game that still looks appealing because it's very cute and adorable.
It's even better with cats.
Yeah, sure. We did see some nice Street Pass origins here, as this is when Bark Mode was discussed, which is the thing where you would close your DS and keep it in your pocket, and then your system would bark at you when you passed by someone.
Anybody else think it was weird that Miyamoto's name on that was Bill? Like, I was really expecting Bill Trinan to walk out, and then
I have a feeling that
like
might have been Trinan. Trinan's copy of the game.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, because I mean, we can go back if you go on Nintendo World Report TV. I think we should have footage from E3 2001, in which you can see a Bill Trinan with shocks of long hair.
Oh, his hair is amazing.
Yeah, looking like a 80s Silicon Valley hacker. Translating for Miyamoto, he's been doing that for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I love the Miyamoto quote from the Nintendo stuff too. Even serious gamers should have fun with the puppies. Which is just, I mean, it's this whole Nintendo thing that they were doing at the time, and they were ramping up for Wii, very much so with what they were doing on DS, which is, here are these experiences that anyone can play, and guess what? Hey, you Mr. Serious Gamer, you can also play this, and it'll be fun. And I think for the most part, it was true. I mean, people might decry Nintendogs to a degree now, but I remember back in 2005, it was the kind of thing that it kind of just warmed everyone's heart. And it might not have lasted that long for some people, but it was really cool at the time.
Pretty much all of my friends, whether they were like completely non-gamers or like really hardcore gamers at the time, we all bought Nintendogs. Like, it was just awesome.
Yeah, some of my friends who I don't think really own a Nintendo Portable in years bought the DS at launch for Nintendogs.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big game. I had my brother had happened to have gotten a puppy around when Nintendogs came out, and then I played with the puppy, who was a Shiba Inu, and then went out and bought the Nintendogs game in which I could play with a Shiba Inu, and I adored it. So that was almost half of the conference. There was some other stuff which I think is probably worth going back to a little bit, in which Nintendo claims that they are not an or company, as in games for this group or that group. Nintendo is an and company, which is games for this group and that group. Now, what do you guys kind of think? Is Nintendo still an and company?
I think they want to be, but right now, with the way things are selling, they have to really focus more on their core fans. So they've kind of like let that go. They've tried. I mean, you can see, especially in the early Wii U games, like Nintendo Land tried to recapture that magic of Wii Sports.
Yeah.
And you had games like Wii Fit and the like HD version of Wii Sports come out, and those I don't think did very well. So you don't see any more of those games really coming out for Wii U. It's more for the core gamer. But I think in the future they're going to try to get that and part back with NX and the whole mobile stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think they're kind of at a crossroads with all that nonsense, because I think with the Wii U they tried to be an and company again.
Yeah.
I think by the end of the Wii they were an or company. They made games for a certain group. And I think early on in the 3DS's life they were still an or company. I think the 3DS briefly crossed into being an and system. The Wii U never was. It was always, it's for Nintendo fans. It's not for casual gamers. It's not for hardcore gamers. It's for Nintendo fans. And I
Yeah,
mean, it's kind of
that's where they're
the
at right
unfortunate reality.
now.
Yeah. But I do agree with you that I think with NX in the future, I think they're striving to be back as an and company.
They'll
Um,
really have to put a lot of. It takes a lot to get out of that stigma of, even though they're what they really are is a Nintendo fan focused company. What they're perceived as is a game system for children, and
yeah,
so it'll take a lot of effort for them to get out of that stigma.
very true.
That stigma isn't really even based on reality.
Yeah,
Like so, they're really gonna have to do something special with NX as far as marketing and perception goes to get people to believe that that's not just another Wii. It would
yeah,
help
and I
if
mean,
it had a good name.
yeah. Some of the other comments around when they're talking about the and or company thing, they talk about how they exist as a content company for love of the game, which I think that still holds true for sure. And also the quote of where the place where the right brain goes to play. And they focused on that a lot. The right brain
Yeah, did they
guys
say
here.
Did they say stuff about that in 2004 also?
Yeah, I
When
think they
discussing the
did.
DS. Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
mean, definitely the thread from 2004 to 2005 is very connected. Like they are building on what they did the year before, and it's part of that perfect execution of the ramp to Wii. Introducing Revolution and then slowly piecing it out. I mean, looking back on it, especially now, like that was brilliant.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
um, we have forgotten the most important thing of E3 2005, and that's the Game Boy Micro.
I haven't forgotten.
I did actually when I was watching this again. Reggie was reaching to his pocket. I was like, "Oh shit, that was this year." Um,
Yeah, when he
that's
reached into his
stuff.
pocket and pulled that out, like it just reminded you of how he did it with the DS the year before, and then you're like, oh, it just wasn't very exciting this time around. So it's like they
Yeah,
tried to do the same, didn't work.
yep. And
It's
then
weird to think that at that time they were trying to support like the Game Boy Advance as like a third pillar. I guess the DS was a third pillar to them. Like they
yeah.
viewed those as two different things that could coexist, I guess.
And I think this was I think the last year where they kind of did that. I think E3 2006 was when they started to just focus on Wii and DS because the DS had proven itself. I mean, some of the games from the Game Boy Advance sizzle reel that then followed the reveal of the Game Boy Micro, the Donkey Kong Country 3 on Game Boy Advance, Fire Emblem: The
Mm.
Sacred Stones, the second Fire Emblem game in America, Mario Tennis Advance, Yoshi Topsy Turvy, Pokemon Emerald, and Justin, do you remember the game called Screw Breaker at all?
I don't remember that game.
I
Was that
I
a?
It's a Game Boy Advance game. I had a note to go look it up, and now I feel like an asshole because I didn't.
I don't remember that one. But
Oh, that's Drill Dozer.
I was gonna
Okay.
say, It sounds like it
Yeah,
could be
yeah,
Drill
okay, that
Dozer
makes
because
sense.
you're
Never
screwing
mind.
stuff.
I'm dumb.
I didn't remember it was
Yeah,
called
so
that.
Drill
So
Dozer was at this E3 as well. Apparently, it was called Screwbreaker when it was first revealed. That's what
yeah,
it was called
I
in
don't know if all
Japan.
these games are playable, but
Yeah,
I don't recall that game being playable.
I don't think it was from what I was poking around with because I was looking to see at least what we had coverage of. If you do want to see some of the coverage from E3 2005, go to NintendoWorld4.com. We might have an article up on the site when you're watching this. It's not made right now, but I might have a kind of recap of E3 2005. The DS did have a whole bunch of games, though. Metroid Prime Hunters was on display, Nintendogs, Mario Kart DS, Electroplankton, Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, Animal Crossing DS, Advance Wars Dual Strike, New Super Mario Bros., Metroid Prime Pinball, and that's not even including all of the third-party games, ranging from the debut of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Uh, we have Meteos, the Sakurai developed game that came out on DS. Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow was at the show, so was Trauma Center, Beautiful Joe on DS. Now, Justin, as someone who went there, were there any games that kind of stood out in your mind?
Well, even though people may hate it, I really enjoyed Metroid Prime Hunters as far as multiplayer goes. I remember trying that a lot, and NST guys were hounding that thing, watching everybody play that game. And if you remember, the DS launched with the Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt, so I played the garbage out of that because it was one of the few multiplayer games for the platform when it came out.
Yeah.
So I was really
really
looking to get more.
multiplayer.
Yeah, so I remember playing that a lot, and Animal Crossing and Mario Kart.
Yeah.
With it's like it's fun to play multiplayer games at E3. So
Yeah.
I remember.
I mean, that's what made Smash Brothers in 2014 so much fun.
Yeah, and I think another game I just remembered when I looked through some of my pictures was Snowboard Kids on DS was also shown.
Oh, I forgot about that game. I forgot that existed. Was that at Nintendo's booth or was it?
It was in Nintendo's booth. It may have also been in Atlas's.
Yeah.
But yeah. There was a ton of DS games. So many kiosks set up. It was crazy. The booth was bigger than now. I'd say This was still in the big E3 days.
Yeah, this was the second to last of the big mega E3 games, 3 years, which I would say that like the size is still there, but it's more spread out, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like there's not as many like little companies around. There's still a lot of the big companies.
Yeah.
So then after this GBA and DS sizzle reel, then Iwata came back out and he held up the Revolution. It was amazing. It was just it was a thing about 3 DVD cases wide.
I was about to say that they brought that up.
Yeah, that was it. And then he started talking more about it.
You will say, wow.
Yeah, you will say wow. The kind of weird thing is they show off all these different colors of the Revolution, where it's in white, red, black, and like some kind of yellow gold. And then you want to ask the audience to ask their readers about it.
They kind of did the same thing at Space World 2000 for the GameCube.
Okay.
Had a bunch of people come out with like multicolor GameCubes, so I felt like it was even then. I felt like we're not getting all these colors. It's going to be like 1 or 2, and that's exactly what it was.
Yep. And it was, I mean, some other interesting things that come out from Iwata talking about the system is he mentions that there will be a way to play DVDs, and that never ever happened. Also talks about DRM for Wii, which is kind of funny because I mean DRM at E3 2013 was a hot button issue for Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and here it's mentioned during a press conference and no one really cares.
Yeah.
And he kind of lightly teases the controller that no one knew was going to be a different way to play, but he basically says, hey, there's going to be a different way to play. It was all right in front of us the whole time.
Yeah, I remember at the time there were rumors going around that it would use some sort of motion control, but we had no idea what it was going to be.
And here's where the comment about working on a variety of Wi-Fi titles, 1 or 2 will be ready for launch. That never happened. That's when Smash Brothers for Wii was announced, unbeknownst to the eventual director of that game, Masahiro Sakurai. And he also said that Miyamoto's next project was going to be revealed soon. And wouldn't that have been Galaxy?
Is it that or like did he work on Wii Sports at all, or? I
mean, it's like Miyamoto's the kind of thing where like, he's involved in everything, but is he really involved in everything? I think Galaxy might have been the game that they're directly teasing there.
Or maybe they just said it and they're like, we'll pick one.
Yeah.
Right. You could just say that, or you could just be like Miyamoto's making a game, yeah.
Yeah. Also mentions how the next versions of Mario and Zelda are underway, and they have big plans for Metroid on the Revolution, which, I mean, we knew about those I mean, the Mario product was Mario Galaxy, Metroid Prime 3 was in development, and I guess Zelda, they might have been already thinking Twilight Princess on Wii in 2005, because they're talking about that the next versions are underway. So, what other version would that be? Unless it's Link's crossbow trading.
Thought it was interesting that like they don't show any of like the actual gameplay from any of the Wii games that they're talking about because they don't want anyone to know that the system is underpowered.
Yeah.
But it was weird because with Metroid, that was the one game that they actually kind of show some of. I mean, it's obviously pre-rendered, but it's definitely like the models from the game because they look low polygon and really garbagey compared to other things that were at E3 that year. And so it's weird that they showed that at all, since they didn't show anything else. Just that little teaser of Samus walking up.
And I think that might have just been like what they had prepared. And that also doesn't really it doesn't spoil the game. Like a sequel to Metroid Prime Well, I mean, I know when they did show the video, because yeah, they showed the video for that.
And
That
then it
was
says
E3
3
2006, or was that? Because didn't they
for
show
the actual like trailer for Metroid Prime.
for Metroid Prime 3?
Yeah.
Was that 2006 that they did that? I don't know.
Uh,
I don't think
Stay
so.
tuned to
I
the
don't.
next
I
episode of
don't
us
think
going back
Metroid.
through E3 games.
I don't think Metroid Prime 3 was shown at E3 2006. They may have
That's,
shown a
Yeah,
trailer or something. I don't think it
I
was
think
played.
there was a trailer shown at some point in which it was one of the first Wii games that had footage shown.
Yeah, I think it showed there was a demo of like Samus standing
Yes.
up and like the ship came behind her, like the new ship or something like that.
Yeah, and I think
Well,
that might have
that
been
was
at some
this year.
event in between 2005 and 2006, right?
Because that video of her walking up and then the ship behind her, that's in the 2005 press conference.
Okay, then I just missed it. My bad. So yeah, some of the other stuff, some of the other quotes from this that I think are kind of choice. Not what you will be playing, but how you will be playing. Once again, kind of beating us over the head with what the Wii Remote was going to be. And that they will create entirely new genres to expand the definition of video games, which they did.
Yep.
Yep, they did it.
They really did. I mean, besides the DVD player thing, they really did deliver on a lot of the promises they made in this. Even like
Well,
big, grandiose ones.
Yeah, and the
so
console
much
with the
the
big
smallest.
idea can prevail over big budgets. That was another
Yeah.
good quote.
Yeah, I feel like Nintendo was really ramping up since their 2004 press conference because, like, at that time, a lot of Nintendo in 2004, a lot of Nintendo fans were like, "Oh, the GameCube's underperforming. Like, we're getting beaten down here." And then, like, Reggie came out, and was like, "We're gonna kick some ass, take some names. Things are gonna be awesome." DS comes out. They get the Revolution starting to come out in 2005, and it's just a good time. Like, you felt like pumped up
Yeah.
about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the next thing that was announced was something that also did come to fruition at launch. Virtual Console coming to Wii. That was NES, Super Nintendo, and N64 were mentioned. All three of those were present on launch day on Wii, so that's great. However, Iwata mentions Excitebike. Okay, yeah, I think that was a launch game. Punch-Out, I think that was out within the first year. And Earthbound. Like,
Yeah,
you dick.
that was talked about for a long time.
Like, okay, so this was 2005. When did Earthbound come out? 2013? Like,
He was
On a
close.
completely different systems, Virtual Console.
yeah.
By Nintendo standards, that's launch window. They're fine.
Yep. And that was all for the teasing of Revolution. Next we had Nintendo's former George Harrison, not the Beatle. He came out to talk about the GameCube, and there was more than 10 million GameCubes out in the wild as of this time. This was 2005, so the system had been out for 4 years. Wii U will have just a little bit less than that come this E3. So, I mean, I think what we're seeing is that the Wii U has a much longer tail than the GameCube. Because the GameCube definitely had the Wii U beat for the first couple of years, but I think the GameCube really faded out quickly, and I think the Wii U might have another year or two that it'll squeeze out acceptable sales.
It's really hard to say.
Yeah. Who knows? The future is vast. But the games that they focused on for this GameCube presentation, which was one of the last, I mean, this is basically GameCube's last show.
Well,
'Cause,
GameCube did show up the next year briefly. I think the Paper Mario game.
that got pushed to Wii,
Yeah, and
that Donkey Kong racing game that got pushed to Wii.
I think there was something else that actually came out though, but I can't remember.
Odama.
Odama was shown this year. Actually,
Okay.
There's a big bell on the floor or whatever. I don't think.
Yeah, because this was like the second wave of Bongo games. To think that there was a second wave of Bongo games is kind of ridiculous. When we can't even get like a round 2 for Kinect games on Xbox One, there was a second year of Bongo games for the GameCube.
Hey, Jungle Beat was pretty good.
Yeah, Jungle Beat was incredible, and Donkey Konga was kind of fun. Not great, but fun. Donkey Konga 2 was here, but that's not one of the important GameCube games. Here's the list of the ones that Nintendo kind of gave a shit about in their presentation: Battalion Wars, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, the Capcom game Killer 7, Mario Baseball, which would become Mario Superstar Baseball, Super Mario Strikers, Mario Party 7, which boasted an 8-player mode, and DDR Mario Mix that got a really loud cheer.
was a different time.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, DDR Mario makes it very, very fun, and this was also kind of, I don't know if it was necessarily the height of DDR popularity, but
It
was
was
a
right
time.
around. It was right around then.
I
Yeah,
think it
I
may have
think
been.
I was super obsessed with DDR at this point in my life
I
when
think it
that
may have
came
been
out.
the first DDR on the GameCube, also, or maybe the
yeah, I
only
think
one.
it was.
So
Yeah.
There might have been like a
I know people
Disney
who
DDR.
wish it was on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there any games here that kind of like step out, especially for you, Justin, having been to this E3, like ones that were fondly remembered?
I'm gonna say overall no. It wasn't. The game they really focused on most on GameCube. I think we're gonna talk about in a
Yeah,
minute, and that took
we'll
up a
get there.
large portion of their booth. But I one of my biggest regrets of this E3 is not trying one game I don't think you mentioned, which I figured, I'm not going to waste time playing that. It's coming out
Nintendo
in a couple
Penetrates
months.
Baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's coming out in like 2 months. Like, I don't need to like worry about playing this now. And then they just canceled the game when it was basically done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really upset I never got to play Nintendo Pennant Chase Baseball.
Yep. I'm really bummed because I love those Nintendo-made baseball games. Or I guess Nintendo published, rather. They didn't really make them
Yeah,
internally.
Ken Griffey Jr. for Smash.
Yeah. Oh man, no, get Ichiro, get him back. That'd be wonderful. I mean, some of these games, it was nice to see them put such a big focus on Killer 7. It was one of the last of the Capcom 5.
Yeah, that
Um,
game I remember trying at E3, and I was just like, this is not what I expected at all. I was kind of hyped for it. I'm like, I don't like the controls. I
Yeah,
can't.
it's a very weird game. It's interesting. It's very, very
Yeah,
interesting, but it's a
I like
weird game.
yeah, interesting style for sure.
Yeah, I mean the good sports stuff from Mario. They had Mario Superstar Baseball and Mario Strikers, which were both pretty fun games, if I do remember. This was also the last E3 for Geist,
Oh yeah, that was there.
which I guess is kind of a thank God that's the last E3 for it, because that would finally come out later in 2005. There was also Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, the first GameCube Fire Emblem game, the first home console Fire Emblem game to come out in North America. Nintendo Penetrates Baseball, which this was the last time people ever saw it before it disappeared forever. I wonder if that game's leaked, because I think I'd get into GameCube emulation to try to play that game.
I don't think it is, honestly. I really don't know, but I don't think it
Yeah.
is. That game is just probably locked in a vault somewhere.
And I mean, there was still a pretty solid amount of third-party games shown off in this GameCube system reel. Batman Begins, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, which is a great game. Madden was still coming to GameCube. Scooby-Doo
Yeah,
Unmasked.
Madden was actually Nintendo's booth.
Ooh, I think for the most part, I mean, at least every year that I was at E3, that Nintendo actually had a Madden game. Madden was in Nintendo's booth. But I
But
mean,
was this the last year? I'm not sure.
no. I mean, I know. Well, my first E3 was 2009, and I know that I played Madden 2010, and I know that I played Madden 2011 there. There was Harvest Moon, Another Wonderful Life, Shadow the Hedgehog, and then StarCraft Ghost, but that was only in
Aw.
Blizzard's booth.
Yeah.
That's sad.
The line for that was pretty long, so
Yeah. StarCraft Ghost was a big gainer, but never actually came out.
I was so excited about that game.
A lot of people were.
Yep.
Oh man.
I was a StarCraft fan, so I was kind of looking forward to it. But
Yeah. So I guess let's close this off by talking about the game that everyone waited this entire press conference to hear about, just like you waited this entire video to hear us talk about it. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which I believe was named in this press conference, and Nintendo showed off a lot of the early stuff. There was the Twilight Realm was shown off, and the whole idea that Link turned into a wolf. There was a lot of Ordon Village, which is apparently called Tuaro Village in the E3 demo. They also had the Forest Temple and other early stuff. Midna was shown off for the first time. Now, Justin, I assume you played this demo at E3 2005.
yeah, the line was insane to get in there. It was. Did you go in 2006 or?
No. My first year was '09.
Oh, yeah, you said that. Yeah, the line was just ridiculously long. I'd say almost as long as the Wii line the year after. Luckily, I didn't have to wait in line. I wasn't media that year, but Nintendo was still pushing their online forum stuff, and I was a sage there, so they're just like, you could just cut the line. so that was awesome. But you'd walk into this booth type thing. Within the booth, it was completely separate, and they had like a forest in the beginning, and there'd be like one demo there, and there'd be like lights on the ceiling with like interactive like displays on the floor with like water and paths and whatnot. And you stepped on it, you'd see the water move. It was really well done. And then it had Stalfos behind like a cage, like shaking it like a guy in a suit dressed up. Like it was like they tried to recreate the world of Zelda around these demos. It was real dark in there. Then you'd go through and past like the dungeons and go into this other area where there was like an animatronic wolf like walking around on this top of this thing. And it was just like, yeah, it was just like way over the top and crazy. And there were so many people in there playing everything. And one thing that I do remember, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive they changed this, was the way the boomerang functioned in the game. There was one boss, I'm not sure which one it is, because I haven't played Twilight Princess in so long. They had to, like, use the boomerang to hit like a million tentacles or something like that, like lock onto a bunch of them. Yeah, that functioned like really weird in that demo, and I think they changed it for the final game.
Yeah, because that was part of that demo, was that final boss of the Forest Temple.
Yeah, so that whole like booth within the booth experience was something to see. So if you can find footage of that online somewhere, definitely check that out.
I might poke around for that, and the eventual article that this video goes into, I might include a link to it, or maybe put it in the description of this very video.
Yeah, it's all that was just awesome and well done.
So I take it you also have you still have your DS cartridge with the Zelda trailer on it, right?
No, I wasn't pressed that year, so I didn't get that.
Okay.
So,
yeah, so the way that this press conference ended is Eiji Aonuma, sans goatee, which you've been keeping up with Nintendo's videos recently. Anuma's been rocking a goatee for quite some time, but back in 2005, he did not have a goatee. And that was weird, because it was like, he looks very familiar. Okay. But then he revealed that they had a DS cartridge that had the Twilight Princess trailer on it, which, I mean, this is kind of in the tail end of the time period in which, like, downloading video off of the internet took freaking forever. So it was kind of a weird thing to give out.
Yeah, especially since you wouldn't have the same quality graphics on your DS as you would if you're watching it. It's weird, and I wish I had it. It's still worth a decent amount of money.
Yeah, I believe that Nintendo World Report's Jonathan Metz might have very quickly sold his DS cartridge of the Twilight Princess trailer because he's like, this is dumb. And then he made a bunch of money off of it. But yeah.
Probably paid for his trip.
So I guess kind of as we wrap this up, any final thoughts on Nintendo's E3 2005 presentation? Let's start with you, John.
I don't think this got mentioned, but Miyamoto made a comment to that G4 TV lady about taking her backstage and showing her all the tricks his puppy could do.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
Oh god,
that was awkward.
Miyamoto, you creeper, man.
Oh man, that was rough. Also, I feel like I've never heard Aonuma speak English except for in this. Like a long segment.
All of them, like Iwata and Miyamoto, all three of them are speaking English in this.
And there's tons of it. Like there is tons of Japanese people speaking a ton of English, and it just seems. I guess this was just before translation was a thing. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, they still have that, but I think, like, I don't think we'll ever really know the full answer for it because you still see, like, you don't really see Iwata. Iwata will do it like speeches that are clearly rehearsed for Nintendo Directs, where they have takes and stuff. Miyamoto doesn't really speak in English anymore.
Been a while.
Yeah, and Aonuma, I think it's the same way. He just doesn't really do it, and I think it might be, maybe it's because it's easier to have the video out there with the translator or something. I don't know. But yeah. Yep. Well, all right. Justin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's two little things in Nintendo's booth we didn't really talk about. There is a whole merchandising section, which you don't see anymore, so, like, a lot of the licensed goods were in some cases there. I guess they had more space to, like, show that stuff off. And they had the DS download demos from the year prior, I believe, for a bunch of that stuff.
Like Steel Diver and all
yeah,
that
there's
stuff.
Steel Diver, and I think that might have been the... You could also get, like, all the demos from Electroplankton, like, right on your DS, I think, and just bring it back
Okay.
to your hotel or whatever if you wanted. And overall, I wasn't overly impressed with the GameCube showing outside of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, but DS was like on fire that year with so much great stuff to show. If you go back and look at some of the pictures and see how many games they had jammed in their booth that year, it's crazy.
Yeah, especially in comparison to what their booths are now, which are very, very focused and minimal.
Yeah, it's
I mean, they
more
don't
than
even
ever.
really have 3DS demos on the show floor anymore.
Well, they did have some Game Boy Micros tethered to models that
So
year,
maybe
so
that's where that originated. The
it,
whole idea of tethering things to women at E3.
yeah, they had that. It was weird, to say the least. But now it's the norm.
Yeah. Well, all right. That's Nintendo's E3 2005. Let us know if you have any feedback. Leave us comments below, or you can leave, I don't know, the email connectivity@nintendoworldreport.com if you want any kind of question. That's our podcast that this might not wind up on, but we will still take your feedback there. And yeah, stay tuned for more fun E3 pre-E3 coverage from Nintendo World Report here on Nintendo World Report TV. All three of us will be at E3 2015 covering the latest and greatest of Nintendo. Until then, we're going to keep on reflecting back on past years, and we hope you enjoy this, and thank you for watching.